See more innovation in packaging and processing than anywhere else at PACK EXPO International. It's the show that defines where the industry is headed, with the solutions that establish where your business can go. Discover state-of-the-art packaging technology, processing equipment, new materials, sustainable solutions, supply chain resources, and much, much more. You'll walk away with innovative solutions to challenges big and small. Register at packexpointernational.com.
You're listening to Unpacked with PMMI, where we share the latest packaging and processing industry insights, research, and innovations to help you advance your business.
Hi, and welcome to Unpacked with PMMI. I'm your host, Sean Riley. Consumer preferences from high-protein foods to viral grocery trends are reshaping the food and beverage processing industry in many unexpected ways. In today's episode, we chat with Vanessa Lopez from Interact Analysis and explore the key findings from PMMI's inaugural Food and Beverage Processing Industry Report, including the technologies, market forces, and investment trends driving the sector forward. Let's have a listen. So with all the fancy introductions out of the way, welcome to the podcast, Vanessa.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
The pleasure is all ours. So PMMI has been doing a state of the packaging industry for years, as long as I can remember. But this is the first time that we've really dove in with a U.S. food and beverage processing state of the industry. So I'm excited to kind of take a deeper dive into it to see what your data has revealed. What are the broader market trends that are shaping the processing machinery, equipment design, and investment decisions today? The things that are making the decisions for the industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. Super interesting doing this for the first time. I've been working on the packaging one for a little bit, and there was a few trends that I noticed go between the two sectors. Those two trends were really workforce and sustainability. The ones that I found super interesting as it related to processing was actually the healthy eating and consumer preferences that have been changing, as well as sanitation requirements and what are some of the needs that we found in the report in the research process.
Interesting. The two that you highlighted, what were some of the drivers that piqued your interest?
Yeah, as it related to healthy eating, one thing that was mentioned to me constantly in the report was the increase in protein intake that's happening in the United States recently.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen it on shelves. One thing that I thought was so funny is I think Pop-Tarts is a great example of this. It's not necessarily what you would think of when you think of a health protein-forward food, but it's spread so far throughout the aisles of the grocery store that even Pop-Tarts has their own protein line. And a big part of that is really GLP-1 use that's been increasing in the United States.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say 1 in 8 individuals in the United States, around 1 in 8, are actually on GLP-1 medication. And one of the side effects of that is having a reduced appetite and a recommendation to have a higher amount of protein intake. But there's also this health craze that's happening in the United States. So there's a lot of individuals seeking out healthier options, reading the back of the nutrition label and seeing what ingredients they understand. And as this result, there's this new shift in ingredients that's coming forth. Cottage cheese was one that was increasing as it relates to this. So it's more of a natural protein, if you will, and people are really starting to want that food a little bit more.
Interesting. So then from an equipment and segment standpoint, what you're growing the fastest, you kind of spoke about what are driving the growth, but what is that doing from an equipment standpoint?
Yeah. So as it relates to the healthy eating, we're seeing more changes in ingredient lists and changes in recipes. We heard from interviewees that it isn't necessarily increasing new machinery. So you're not going to buy a completely new machine because we're adding protein. We're going to have to work with them to make changes to the recipe. So sometimes the viscosity can change. I think there was talk of adding cottage cheese to like ice cream or cottage cheese to like yogurt and mixing it in. And there's this like chemical side. I'm not a baker and I'm not a chemist, but there's this new level of modification that needs to be made and changing adjustments to the machines. So that's pushing for more changes in that aspect and working with the vendors to work on that. But as it relates to some of the fastest growing machines, we saw the meat and poultry sector is having an increase there, as well as the dairy sector. Yeah,
I saw that when you kept mentioning cottage cheese, I remembered seeing the dairy growing, and I was wondering what would have been the cause for that, because I think dairy, I think eggs, cheese, milk, things that we've all been eating all along. Why would that be suddenly something that was boosting? But maybe that would be something like the cottage cheese or even yogurt, which I know the Greek yogurt's high in protein, and that's a thing that people are into.
Yeah. I think a big thing for the dairy is really that protein intake that's helped. There's actually data available from the USDA, and we showed in the report that shows the amount of fluid milk cells. And you can actually see in recent years, people are choosing to drink more dairy. So whole milk has been increasing slightly compared to where it has been in the last 10 years. And some of
Okay.
those low fat skim milks are actually starting to decrease a little bit. The cottage cheese one is actually a result of virality. We talk a little bit about it in the report, but there's this new growing effect where someone posts something online or it goes viral on TikTok and everybody wants it and it
Yep.
flies off the shelves. And cottage cheese was a result of that, where there was some influencers promoting it, talking about the protein intake, talking about how you can put it in your food, your waffles, add it to your eggs. And as a result, it started to get more purchases. And now there's even cottage cheese that has strawberries in it and different flavored cottage cheeses.
Mm-hmm.
So they get this product that's gone viral and make as many options and variables as you can, because consumers are just looking to eat everything and try every flavor and see which ones they prefer.
Another end user segment that I saw that really jumped and is going to jump going through 2030 at almost like 4.8 CAGR, which surprised me, was prepared foods. Do you have any rhyme or reason for that?
Yeah, I think prepared foods is really increasing as people are back in the office. So during the pandemic time, everybody was really slow working from home. And now we're seeing people come back into the office. And so with that, prepared foods is starting to see. So think about how cheese is being sliced. And a lot of these sort of small things that you don't really think about have been done manually. In one interview, it was shared with me that a customer was actually getting little pieces of meat and rolling the cheese around it manually. And they actually created a way to do that automatically. So it's things like that that are sort of increasing the prepared food sector. But it's also just the amount of food that we are consuming as a society, and everyone wants something ready to eat and easy to grab, and that's boosting that sector.
Interesting. Okay. From a machinery standpoint, equipment types, when I looked at it, the thing that was jumping the most, and I hope I know the reason for this, but hopefully you can clear it up a little bit more, was inspection equipment was supposed to be the highest at 4%. Is that just the logical, like more sanitation rules, more things coming in, recalls, things like that, that's driving that?
We actually took a look at the sanitation growth and inspection growth that we're seeing in that space. And there's been an increase in US FDA recalls recently. And whenever there's a recall, it is scary for someone as a consumer, but also for the company that's selling this product. It's no one wants to see their names in the headlines with a recall. And so there's been this growing push to understand ahead of anything, what is it that's going on? And so inspection equipment has really been an increase there. There's been some new technology starting to come to fruition, especially with the inclusion of AI. You're able to easier spot smaller fragments of materials than you would have otherwise. You're able to have a better view of the bones. I think one example that I saw was AI included in inspection equipment for fish bones, which has been notoriously pretty hard to tell. They're really small. And things of that sort are starting to gain more traction. And no one wants anything that's not supposed to be in the food, be in their food. And with the technology developing more, we're seeing it increase a lot.
Interesting. And that you led me to a question that I've been thinking. Was there any other impact for AI that popped up in the study beyond just inspection equipment? Or is that something that kind of hasn't made its way in yet?
Yeah, we're starting to see AI enter and creep its way into processing a little bit more. I think there's a bit of hesitation. There would be, someone was sharing with me the ability or the capability for AI to understand if the machine was outputting the product, let's say at a thicker viscosity than it needs to be or a lighter viscosity, and note as it's seeing the product come down the line that there's a change that needs to happen, and automatically look at the product, look at the data, and make adjustments as needed, which is really great. And if we're able to do it, it saves a lot of time of having to stop the machine and make manual adjustments. But the barrier that we're seeing on the AI side is the fear of accountability. So if there was an AI glitch and there's patties are coming out wrong and now we have really big patties, who is going to be held responsible for the changes that AI made? So it's being slower to come into the machine side as it comes to that. But I heard a lot about AI being used to help with increasing the amount of yield out of a product. So
Okay.
when they're cutting off meat off the bone, a lot of that is done manually. And we're starting to hear more about AI being included with robotics to be able to get as much meat off the bone. I'm sure you've heard that the dairy numbers, or the cattle numbers, I should say, are a little low. And so having the inclusion of AI for a system like that can actually increase yield a lot. So AI is starting to come into the market, but I think most people were talking about it more so in the aspect of using it online, using it for marketing, using it to increase easeability or ease of use with the HMI simplification on that front a little bit more to start.
And that's what I've been hearing as well. I was just curious if it was any different in the processing sector, but like you noted that there's a kind of a trust barrier where how much can we trust with it? Either way, you're going to still need a person overseeing it. And then is it worth going through all the trouble of the AI if a person and people have to check it anyway? So you jibed up with what I've been hearing in packaging as well. So that we have to talk about AI, but it seems like you said it's still in the back office part and not necessarily working its way onto the line beyond the inspection part, which is pretty cool. Yeah. You've touched on a ton of trends that we should be paying attention to. I guess, is there one or two things that we can expect in the rest of 2026 and leading into 2027 or even going out further in this sector that we should be paying attention to?
Yeah, I think as it relates to the trends, fiber is the next protein. So the way protein increased significantly over the last couple of years, we're seeing fiber start to enter. So fiber drinks, I think, are sort of the start of where we're seeing this entry. I hear fiber gummies are making their way into the space as well. Adjacent to that, I think beans might increase as the natural fiber. So the same way cottage cheese and dairy is helping with the protein side, I think beans might be the one that helps with the fiber side. Going to the machinery investment, though, into 2026 and 2027, I think we've had a couple of years of uncertainty in 2025. So there's a lot of economic policy changes that happened. And 2024 was a lot of wait and see mentality. So there was change that was going to come at the end of the year. The Fed was lowering interest rates. And then going into 2025, there was a lot of changes and it was a little bit tumultuous. So going into 2026, I think there's been this pent-up demand that we've been seeing in the market, and people have been holding their money tight and pausing to see where they should be investing, and then looking to R&D with all of the virality and the changes that are happening so quickly. 2026 and 2027, I think, is going to be the year where companies are like, okay, we've held off for so long. We need to get moving forward on these projects. And I think we're starting to see more talks about where these are going to go and see more of the market pick up.
Awesome. I can't thank you enough, Vanessa, for taking time out of your busy day to hop on here and talk us through the inaugural Processing State of the Industry report.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Unpacked with PMMI. If you liked what you heard, be sure to follow or subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. That way, you won't miss any of the industry insights coming your way. While you're there, we'd really appreciate a rating or review. Want more? Visit pmmi.org/podcasts for all of our past episodes and additional resources. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll see you next time.